Welcome back to the Daily Bread Bible Study. We are looking at day 32 for Saturday, February 1st, 2020. We have made it a month and we are looking at Leviticus 14 through 15. So we are 2.5 books of the Bible down through a month of study. Today will be a short day because we are looking at Leviticus 14 and 15, and I don't have too much to say about these chapters. In Leviticus 14 talks about purifying lepers and leprous houses. The interesting thing I find about this, and all of the details you can read up, go into more, and probably look and pour into if you want to find more meaning out of it than I've had. But I find this practice interesting, that with leprosy, what you often do is it talks about taking two birds. And you'll take the bird and cast lots for the bird. And then you'll take one of the birds and sacrifice it and spill the blood out. And then you'll take the other bird and dip the living bird in this water and blood mixture from the dead bird, and then let it go into the wilderness. So we'll talk a little bit more about scapegoating and how I think this is similar to the idea of scapegoating. We'll talk about that next time on day number 33. But yeah, this seems like a strange practice to dip this bird in the blood and the water and to release it. But there is a certain amount of the blood being connected with life and carrying the guilt, and all of that is interconnected with this bird receiving it. So, but we can look more at that coming up next time. So with lepers, one of the things it recommends is that all hair is shaved from the body and you bathe to become clean. So all this hair, very obsessed with hair and leprosy and not being able to pass on these diseases through the hair. So yet again, an occurrence of hair being important with leprosy. Then we have something that is done with both the consecration that we've seen through the priest earlier, but we have the sprinkling of blood and oil. So we hear that on the right side, that on the right ear, and so then on the right thumb, and then on your big right toe, that you'll get a dipping of some blood of the first animal, and then you take the oil and sprinkle it on that same blood mixed with oil, and then on the thumb, and then on the toe again, to symbolize the mixture of the blood and the oil coming together and the sacrifice, and then being able to be washed and be cleaned of the leprosy or the ritual, especially the ritual uncleanliness before God that would keep you out of the sanctuary. So if you had leprosy, you were excluded from the community because of your leprosy. You were not able to be a part of the worship of God. You were not be able to be a full member in the community because you were unclean before God. And so Jesus will pick up that discussion of who is unclean and clean before God, especially in the New Testament, and make different views of what is clean and unclean coming up there. He'll make different stances on cleanliness and uncleanliness before God, and often be accused of eating with tax collectors and sinners, of eating with unclean hands and unclean ways. But there's a different sense of purity in that day and time. But for Leviticus, this is the ritual, the blood and the oil and the washing in order to become clean. I think it's also fascinating to note, too, that even as a leper, what they're trying to do is to help out individuals who might become leprous. And they even have concessions for if someone is poor. So, if you are poor, then they can, kind of reduce the required elements for this, atonement. But I find that that they are considering the state of their fellow brothers and sisters and of the wealth in regards to this ritual cleansing and this more doctoral function, or more of a doctor function, I should say. Yet again, we have the admonition to get rid of stones and wood and mortar from a house if there's leprosy in a house, and you take it away to an unclean place and then replace those with clean stones and wood and mortar. So, yeah, they were, it's strange to me because, they're trying to determine what's clean and unclean, and then, where the leprosy is and isn't. And, we would not take and remove stone away quite in that same way. Wood, we could see how the blood and, any germs might be present in the wood. And we might remortar things, but we probably wouldn't take away the stones in our day and time. So all this is to teach when it is unclean and when it is clean, as it says at the end of Leviticus 14. And so let's move into Leviticus 15. So here we have some rules around bodily discharge, which makes me think about my role of sanitizing after my kids, who are both currently sick right now. I was up last night with my son, who was throwing up and, also had some diarrhea as well too. But it just makes me think about the sanitizing process after, vomiting or bleeding or diarrhea. And so there's some rules around here for this bodily discharge, as they're trying to keep that cleanliness and that boundary within your own body of what's normal and abnormal regarded. So another thing I should note too is that we'll see differences between men and women again, as we stated a little bit ago, that men have a semen discharge and they are only unclean for 1 day, whereas women have their normal monthly menstruation, and for 7 days they are unclean. So we see that there's a difference between men and women, and all of this is done for Leviticus 15:31. Thus you shall keep the people of Israel separate from their uncleanliness, so that they may not die in their uncleanness by defiling my tabernacle that is in their midst. So God is wanting to remain holy, to remain set apart, to remain clean, both ritually and then, with like the ailments, the physical ailments, to keep germs from spreading in his tabernacle, just like we advise kids who are sick to stay at home from school and stay at home from daycare for my kids who are sick presently. So that is all for today. Next time we're going to look at even more discussion. We'll look at the study of scapegoats on day 33, and then we will get to explore a little bit more with that. So here ends day 32.